Director of Content Marketing at CDK Global. Dave Thomas. Dave, I promise no Wendy's jokes. Where's the beef? I'm not going to ask it. Sorry. I had to do it.
Hey, Dave.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Welcome to the show. We appreciate you being back and joining us again. So let's ask, how's biz in your world, however you define that, and tell everybody a little bit about yourself, Dave.
Biz is busy on the research and insight side here at CDK. We have a number of studies just out on the market on F&I and some others. And we have EV and service coming up. So my world is quite busy. And so that's great. Personally, I've been in the auto biz for about 20 years. I started off on the editorial side at cars.com as managing editor there for 10 years, then went to an agency, worked on the OEM side, and now I'm working with dealers at CDK.
That's awesome. Well, we're glad you're there. We're glad that you're here on the show joining us. We want to go to a post, first off, that you recently put out there into the world on LinkedIn. CarMax recently reported its quarterly earnings. They disappointed. It actually led to, I think, the largest decline in stock share in the past 5 years. And you said, quote, CarMax may be a canary in the coal mine when it comes to Q3 sales. Tell us and our audience a little bit about what you mean by that and what you think the forecast should look like with CarMax and automotive overall, Dave.
Yeah, I think it's a really early example of just how significant the pull forward is in demand that we're seeing based on shoppers on the tariff and EV news. And so CarMax being on the used side, obviously isn't directly related to tariffs because they don't directly hit the MSRP on a used car, but it all filters down. Used car prices are going to go up as well, and they are. So the fact that they're off, and it was a surprise. They were not expecting this, and I think all of Wall Street was surprised by it. And I think there's a little bit to it, and I'd love to hear your feedback from both of you. And I didn't really think about it until this morning, but listening to your show and listening to other dealers I talked to, they are doing everything they can to get used inventory. And I think they're beating CarMax a little bit. So I think this rise in the emphasis on used among franchise dealers is probably one of the reasons that CarMax had a little bit of trouble in Q3. And we'll talk about EVs in a second, but Q4 is, I mean, this is really, when we shift into October, this Q4 is going to not be pretty until we kind of stabilize and recover from all that pulled forward demand.
What do you expect what do you expect CarMax to do to have a better next quarter? Do you think they'll become more competitive in their used car acquisitions? Do you think that's going to be a little bit of a challenge? I mean, for car dealers watching this show September 26th, what do you expect to see from CarMax in the coming quarter on acquisition and sales used?
Yeah, well, I'm not a CarMax expert, but to your point, I don't think they're going to sit back. Expect, that machine they've built in terms of acquisition that is, almost a gold standard, you would think, that many franchise dealers kind of want to emulate. They'll spin that back up as hard as they can, and it's going to be on the acquisition side. Every time I come into the office here, I drive by a car dealership row, right, just like many towns have.
Yeah,
we're on the outside of Chicago here. So I go through Schaumburg. I'm sure you're familiar with it, Sam.
Oh, yeah. Hoffman Estates, Schaumburg, the whole area. Yeah, Gulf Road.
Yeah, there's a huge CarMax dealership. They're all huge. And over the past few months, it's really been the first time I've seen holes in that lot. Usually it's stacked completely, and you go by it in the past few months, and it's not. So
you're seeing so many dealers adopt that strategy too, like just pulling a CarMax, which, like you said, is the gold standard, and then trying to match or beat that offer with the customer right there. So I think you're right. You're going to see a compressed margin is better than no margin, right? So it's going to be a bumpy ride.
Yeah.
I'm curious, and maybe none of us are qualified to do this, but you said it surprised Wall Street, their results, right? So at the end of the month, when we think about all of our stores, like, nobody should ever be surprised. Coming into the end of the month, we should know kind of where every store is going to sit. Like, you don't ever see a huge profit or a huge decline that you don't expect. How can a public company like that so solidly shock Wall Street? And, like, is it an attempt to hope for better market conditions? Isn't it? What drives that, in your opinion? Do you have any background to help with that?
So I've been doing this for about 20 years. Wall Street's good at a lot of things, and there's really smart people that know this industry. I don't know if they all know it as well as they think they know it. It is
Okay.
uh, a fluid industry especially on the retail side, and there's never uh, I can't recall besides '08, with this tariff impact, there's never been something that's so pinpointed. Again, maybe the Great Recession and cash for clunkers, but besides that, nothing has had the impact of tariffs. And I think that's more mental. I think that's more of a mental thing on the car buyer side, but nothing's impacted like that. So
Mhm.
not how those waves would impact someone like CarMax probably would be a surprise. And they don't
Yeah.
listen to you guys where we hear every time you talk. I would say it's got to be more than half the time you talk to a dealer, they're talking about their used acquisition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has been a huge focus these past many
Yeah.
months. And how do you get cars? How do you compete against CarMax? We saw for so long high appraisal values. So car dealers, franchise retail would allow a used car appraisal to go to CarMax because they could sell the new car on it. And maybe the benefit of this is maybe we'll see those used car values come more into line with market and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yoga Cars comments, I taught Wall Street has satellite images to count cars, same as they do for Walmart parking lots. So that could be, what makes me happy
Interesting.
though, Dave and Yuli, is that automotive is complicated enough that Wall Street can't guess it 100%, which that makes me happy because what we do is a little bit of a challenge. So do you think, well, let's talk EVs. Anything else you want to talk about with as it relates to CarMax, Dave? Any other insights or thoughts you have about it? Takeaways for auto dealers?
Well, I think when we go into the sales side of things and talk about EVs and going into September and this end of this incentive, it's all about that pull forward demand. And
Yeah.
I listen to you guys, like I said, all the time. And when you think about EVs and the market and what we're going to see, what gets talked a lot about is a narrative. But with EVs, we talk about nuance in all of auto sales. Nothing is more nuanced than the EV market.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I'll go through some of the points, and you'll bear with me. But the narrative is very strong, and I'll point to you, Sam. You say it sometimes. No one wants EVs. That's like kind of the narrative, right? It's a very strong narrative. The nuance is very different because
Yeah.
if no one wanted EVs, they wouldn't be rushing out and getting them now while there's a value to them, right? You're still
Yeah.
buying a very expensive product,
Mhm.
Yeah.
usually $7,500. You're still buying, the second most important thing you'll ever buy. I joke in this housing market, it's the most expensive thing you'll ever buy now. So no one's going to take a leap just based on that incentive, right? They want that EV.
Yeah.
So if we jump up to 12% or whatever it's at, 14% in this rush, and the average last year, the market share was 9%, we're going to fall really steeply in Q4. How
Yeah.
steeply? Probably going to be like steep. It's going to be like 5-6% market share. It's going to
Mhm.
be, but it's not going to stay there.
Yeah.
People like EVs, and the nuance on these numbers is all the traditional automakers EV sales are gaining. And who's losing? Tesla.
Mhm.
So Tesla had such a high market share, they keep dropping by large percentages. The overall volume is coming down really significantly. So it's kind of this battle of the gains the traditional ones are making against the losses of Tesla, and that's hurting as all this other stuff is going on with the incentive expiring. So you're going to see numbers. They are nuanced numbers, and that's something to kind of remember as we go out when we come out of Q4. Q4 won't be nuanced. Q4 is going to be bad.
Mhm.
Yeah. There will be a normalized demand for EVs. And
Yeah.
my frustration with the EV debate is that the federal government created fake demand and they were trying to create infrastructure behind it. And to your point, in doing that, they've kind of pulled it ahead. It'll end up somewhere in between. I do think, don't you think it's not going to fall off the cliff that everybody thinks? There will be some sort of normal. It feels like, yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think
Next
it's going
year.
to go. Yeah, I think it's going to go back to 9%. I don't think
Okay.
the $7,500 thing's coming at a weird time. The Tesla thing's going to hurt, but there's this other element, and I've talked to Yossi about it before. There's still not a lot of EV products on the market. Most automakers have maybe 2 or 3 in their mix
Mhm.
at most. There's some others that are doing more, but they got 2 or 3. There's not a lot of affordable ones yet that do what people need them to do,
Yeah.
and those are coming. The new Nissan Leaf being the first one, and Nissan's moved that very quickly through at
Yeah.
that 30,000 price point, trying to land at this moment when they need it to. And so the $30,000 car is a volume car,
Yeah.
right? $40 to $50,000 EV is not.
Yeah.
So if we bring more of these volume EVs, that's right. That market share is going to grow. And Kia has an EV4 that's similar. We don't know the exact price, but it'll be in that 30 range ish, and that'll be out next year. And so, as we get more of these products that cater to more people, it will stabilize, and I think it will still hit that 9%, even with what's happening at Tesla, and even with the incentive going away.
So you've got this EV shopper study. When's it released?
As fast as we can get it done.
Okay.
we have a
So
terrific
soon.
we have a terrific research team here, and they are firing on all cylinders. Like I said, we just had an F&I study come out. We have this workplace
Yeah.
study that just came out, and so EV's next on the docket. We have a great service shopper study also coming out in the future. So I can give you some sneak peeks of what the EV study says.
Give us one
Little bit.
data point. Is there one or
Yeah.
two data points that would surprise people?
Yeah, the biggest data point. Yeah, the biggest data point is going to unfortunately reinforce that narrative that no one wants EVs. We survey in this shopper study not just the EV, and I'll battle it a little bit. We
Yeah.
study not just the people shopping for EVs, but also gas and hybrids, right? We want to see the comparison and where it all lands, because
Yeah.
that's the market.
Yep.
So the gas shopper last year, 3 out of 10 gas shoppers said they'd buy an EV eventually. They'd buy one in the future. Okay, so someone going to get a big SUV that runs on gases, 3 out of 10 of those people said they buy an EV in the future. That number this year is 1 out of 10. It is
wow.
it is a huge drop. And
wow.
the hybrid shoppers, which was about 50%, said they buy an EV in the future. It's now in the 30% range. So that is where that narrative makes an impact, right? That EVs aren't for you. Those gas shoppers seem to be believing it, even as each EV that comes out is more capable, more affordable, and EVs are honestly they're great cars.
You surveyed gas shoppers, correct? That's what you said?
All three, EV,
All three,
hybrid, and
yeah.
gas. Yes, and
I was going to
lots.
say, because isn't it true that then the gas shoppers bought EVs, so there's less in the market? But
Well, we also do that, right? So
yeah.
We have an EV owner study. We put it out over the summer. 80% of people that own EVs are going to buy another one. So that's the other part of that growth where you're going to see that market share maintain, because they're going to buy a car in 3 to 5 years and it's going to be an EV. So in this study, the people out shopping for EVs, right? 50% or over 50%, I should say, are buying or are shopping for a new EV to match with one they already have. So they are going all in on the EV. So this is probably the most important part of that nuance of EVs. Once someone's got one, they love them. And
isn't it also important, to differentiate the buyer? You're talking about nuance. On the used car side of things, for a used EV, I think the buyer of that car is completely different than a traditional used car buyer, because my opinion, it's less about mileage and more about something like battery health, right? So it's like you have a super pointed, passionate shopper who thinks, and I'll agree, is highly informed on the decision. So this is one of those things that I think dealers need to be on the lookout for. There's more to that second market, that used EV market.
Yeah, and it's the used EV market's really intriguing. And so when I used to, talk to when I was at cars.com, and my job was to, give advice to car shoppers. And so the thing you would say about the knock on a used car is you don't know who owned it before and how they treated that used car. That was always my thing. It's like, if you can afford the new car and it's not a big trade-off, you got a warranty, no one's ever, gunned it, and gone over potholes at 100 miles an hour. You just don't know what they've done to that car, right? No matter what the car factor, you don't know. An EV, in the way that transmission, there is no transmission, and the way that motor work, it's very hard to be hard on an EV. So even if they have higher mileage, which by the way, EV drivers drive more than gas drivers, right? So
Yeah.
the used mileage on EVs is usually much higher.
Wait, wait, is this a fact? I didn't
Oh
know
yeah.
that.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
EV
so
drivers put more miles on the
yep.
EVs.
Yep.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
So
Trying to
those
bring that cost per mile down, right?
right? And that's a big. And now a lot of them are rideshare, drivers, and they want to get
Mm.
the most out of that. That's definitely some of them, but it's overall. And when we do our owner study, it proves out they have the longest commutes, and we
Hmm.
track the road trips, and they're doing more road trips than they used to, at much longer distances.
Wow.
So before we transition into the workplace study, we want to hit that just briefly here. Just two things on EVs. Number one, as EV credits expire for used car managers, dealers that are listening to the show today, what would your advice be based on your survey in acquiring and selling EVs in today's market, new and used, by the way? And then, is there any myths that's still suppressing demand a little bit in that EV marketplace, according to your survey? And then we'll switch to the workplace.
Um, yeah, let's tackle the myth first. Is that you're going to run out of range? We can talk about battery replacement, which doesn't really exist. Most people's use
No,
cases will never
it's
experience battery
expensive.
replacement.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the range thing, I mean, most modern EVs have 250 miles of range, if not more. Just think about that. You're not doing that type of driving in your daily week. Maybe you're in sales and you do that much driving. Fine, that's an outlier, right? So the
Yeah.
average commutes 20. That we saw for EV owners is about 20 miles a day, and so you're never, and that was more than the gas owner. So you're not going to
Hmm.
run out of that range. It's not going to be this. And when I was a car time, we bought the first Nissan Leaf, one of the first Nissan Leafs in the country, had 80 miles of range. That was white knuckling all the time.
You
Yeah.
We,
know, I had one too. So
right? And
So
we don't have that that it just doesn't exist in a modern EV.
So you would say range anxiety is overplayed. That people have plenty of mileage they can go before they have an issue on charging. That's interesting. And then, what advice would you give to dealers looking to sell EVs for the rest of this year? Rebates expire, unsupported by government
Yep.
subsidies, which I love that. And now market comes into play. How should I stock and think about selling EVs?
So the selling point on used EVs, no matter what the incentive is you're going to get way more value of that vehicle than you would buying a used, let's say Honda Accord or something like that. You're going to be getting at a similar price like a Polestar 2. I mean, you're going to get like near luxury. They're
Mhm.
decked out with technology. For the most part, they're newer. And they just have lots of bells and whistles. They're impressive. It probably won't feel like you're like settling on a used car, let's say, right? Like you are getting something that feels very tech forward. And
Mhm.
so on that used side I mean, they're just cool. Like, and when you think of like used shopping, like if you're a used car shopper, it's like, are you really thinking you're going for something cool, or you're going to get something to get you from A to B, right? I mean, obviously you can get used, luxury and sports cars, but
Mhm.
for the most part, it is a very unique product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So just a couple comments online, then we'll go to the survey. So PSI Max says they love them if they don't live in a multifamily dwelling. I think homeowners with garages see a lot of benefits because infrastructure is still a challenge. Morgan Bird says check out our F&I shopper study. I think you probably know Morgan at cdkglobal.com/insights. Jay Lasco says follow-up question for the people taking the survey saying they will buy another EV. If the payment is $100 or more per month for a similar vehicle, would you still buy the EV
Mm.
again? And that's a great question
Yeah.
going to the government subsidy support. Actually, how would you answer that, Dave? $100, does it make a difference?
No, they're shopping for that vehicle, and it's not. I don't know. On the lease side, it's a completely different conversation because of the lease rate. So you're going to see talk about a hit. The lease hit's going to be remarkable. But no, if you're shopping and you're going to own, and for the most part, they want to own the car. They're choosing lease because it's just a terrific deal. But for
Yeah.
the most part, they want to own it. So they're shopping like anyone else. It's a $40,000 car. 6-year
Yeah.
term, 4%. They're just that's what they're shopping. There's no difference there. Now, do they tend to be a little higher income and higher education, all those things? Yeah, just like similar to luxury shoppers.
Yeah.
All right, let's transition to the workplace study in just the final couple minutes we have left. Job satisfaction, according to your workforce survey, jumped to 82%. What changed on the ground inside stores to drive that jump? And actually, where did it start? I don't have a context number for that.
I believe it was 78. You're gonna
Okay, 4
yeah, it was in the
points.
high
That's good.
70s. Yeah, so it was good. I think the national average is in the 80s. So now it's right on par with the national average in terms of job satisfaction. And I think what's changed, I don't think it's actually changed that much, probably in terms of what dealers are doing. We saw some changes. We added a new question this year about stress, and that was probably the most interesting thing because again, we listen to dealers all the time, we listen to your show all the time,
Yeah.
and a dealer will say, I can't focus on the broad economic stories happening. I don't control it. I can control what's happening at my store. Control the control.
Yeah.
Hear it all the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
The employees, the number one stress they have is economic uncertainty. It is what's
Yeah.
going on in the world, and that
Yeah.
tops bad customers. So a bad customer stresses them less than the economy. So the real thing, the point I want to get
Interesting.
across, with this study is, dealers doing a great job satisfaction, but just to know where their employees' heads are at. And number three after the customers was the future of the auto industry. So the employees are really focused on what's going on, and they're going to
When is this survey done? When was the survey done?
I want to say it was about 3 or 4 months ago. Yeah.
Oh, so I mean, tariff time. You want to talk about economic uncertainty?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, what strikes me about the results of this survey, though, is what is the difference between a dealer being able to kind of tune out the uncertainty? I think most dealers see economic opportunity in uncertainty. Yeah. Employees have a challenge because they can buy off in it. It's poor leadership if you can't convey that certainty in times of uncertainty. Because in automotive, there's opportunity in moments of change and uncertainty that doesn't exist when things are just straight left, which that's a myth anyway. There's no economic time that's just flat, right? But it's interesting to me because, the future of automotive, that's been a concern since I got into the business in the late 80s, early 90s, right? Like we've always been talking about this, Dave. So what makes now and these results so applicable to today? And what is a takeaway for a dealer reading this workforce survey?
For them, I think it is to see like the core, what people say are the reasons they are satisfied. And so
lean into that.
Yeah. And number one was the people they worked with. And that topped compensation, which was number two. So even for an industry that really focuses on how much money you make, it really was that camaraderie in the dealership, which last year didn't shine through as much. And because we hear dealers talk about that quite a bit. And so we were like, that didn't shine. This year it did. So that's really positive. The thing that another kind of thing that we thought was interesting is, working a dealership is very unique. Long hours, kind of you're dealing with customers, all those types of things. You can't work from home. Flexibility is a little less than other places. So that did hurt how many people would recommend the career to someone else. Only a quarter of employees would say they'd recommend to friends and family a job in automotive retail. So I don't think that's saying something bad about the industry. I think it's this reality. It's not for everyone.
It's not for everyone.
But it's nice to see that confirmation.
Well, Director of Content Marketing, CDK Global, Dave Thomas, we absolutely appreciate you being on the show. One last comment posted. Actually, there were multiple to ask this. Ariel Pereira said, can you post this survey? So, Ariel, just as a reminder, you can go to cdkglobal.com/insights. And Dave, we'd love to have you back to talk about any of these data points or others. Just one takeaway. It came into my head, right? Dealers see opportunity and uncertainty. Employees sometimes have tougher. It's on us as leadership to convey that certainty and that sense of opportunity where it exists and help keep teams focused on the mission. And I think when people are focused on that mission, we become better at what we do, Dave. Fair? So
I think you said it great. Yeah.
Dave Thomas, thanks for being on the show, sharing your perspectives.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Dave.